Hi everyone, before you start reading, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. That day started like any other. I woke up, went to work, reviewed documents, solved problems, and talked to clients, just a regular day. But as the evening approached, everything turned upside down. "Hey, Mark, did you see how your wife was shining at the wedding?" joked Dave, the office joker, with a smirk. Laughter erupted around the room. I forced a smile. "Natalie always loves being the center of attention," I replied calmly, trying not to show my unease. But Dave didn't let up. "Oh, she definitely made Laura's wedding unforgettable," he said before walking away. His words stuck in my mind like a splinter. I couldn't focus. Why did this bother me so much? Maybe because lately, something had changed between Natalie and me. It felt like a dark cloud was hanging over us. On the drive home, I kept telling myself, don't overthink it. It's just a joke. But the closer I got to home, the tighter the knot in my chest grew. When I walked into the apartment, Natalie greeted me with a smile. She was cooking dinner, humming to herself, and seemed happy. But inside, I was torn apart. Over dinner, she chatted about a new friend, Olivia, whom she had met at the wedding. She talked about dresses, dancing, and the fun they had. I nodded along, but I was only half listening. Her smile, was it genuine, or just well-rehearsed? After dinner, Natalie went to take a shower. I sat on the couch, staring into space, until I noticed her phone on the nightstand. I had never thought of checking it before, but that night, something inside me snapped. I picked it up. The gallery had nothing suspicious, just photos of us, our son, and her colleagues. I was about to put it back when I saw a message thread with Olivia. At first, it seemed normal, but then one line caught my eye, "As long as Mark doesn't find out." My heart dropped. I didn't know what they were talking about, but those words were enough. I put the phone back, trying not to make a sound. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw images I didn't want to see. I tried to convince myself I was overreacting, but the anxiety wouldn't go away. The next morning, I did something I never thought I would do. I found the number of a private investigator. "We'll handle this immediately," they said calmly. I gave them all the details, names, dates, the wedding venue. Now, all I could do was wait and prepare for the possibility that the truth might be too bitter to swallow. The days dragged on. I lived on edge, waiting for the investigator's call. Natalie, on the other hand, seemed the same as always, maybe even happier. This contrast drove me crazy. I searched for hints in her behavior, any signs of guilt, but everything seemed normal. Too normal. I started to doubt myself. What if I was wrong? What if Dave was just messing with me? What if this was all in my head? But on the 10th day, the call came. "We have the materials," the investigator said calmly. "When can you meet?" My heart turned to ice. We agreed to meet that evening, but the hours felt like an eternity. When the time came, I almost wanted to cancel. What if I wasn't ready to face the truth? In the investigator's office, everything was professional and to the point. A folder of photos lay on the table. He opened his laptop and played a video. I watched as Natalie danced with a man. His hands were on her waist, and her gaze said more than any words ever could. This wasn't just a dance. It was everything I had feared. But that wasn't all. The video showed them leaving the venue and heading toward a hotel. The last frame was the door to their suite closing. I don't remember what I said to the investigator. I just walked out, feeling empty. On the way home, I tried to justify her actions. Maybe she was tired, maybe she needed more attention. But deep down, I knew the truth. She had betrayed me. Now, there was only one question left: what do I do next? I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling. Her eyes, the way she had looked at him, haunted me. I thought I knew her, her habits, her dreams, her weaknesses. But it turned out I had been living with a stranger. Or maybe I just didn't want to see who she really was. By morning, I had one clear thought: I won't let this go. I could have confronted her, thrown the evidence in her face, kicked her out. But that would have been too easy. I wasn't going to lose everything in an instant. I wouldn't let her walk away as the victim. At breakfast, I acted normal. Natalie chatted about her plans for the day, how she was meeting Olivia for a manicure. I nodded, pretending to listen, but my mind was already working on a plan. At work, I locked my office, turned off my phone, and started reviewing our prenuptial agreement. We had signed it before the wedding as a formality. Back then, I never thought it would come into play. But now, it was my trump card. The agreement clearly stated that in the event of infidelity, all jointly acquired assets would remain with me. Moreover, if I could prove her infidelity, I would have the upper hand in custody of our son. For the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of calm. I had a tool, and now I just needed to use it correctly. But I knew I had to play my cards carefully. That evening, I acted as if nothing had happened. It was hard. I wanted to scream, smash dishes, force her to confess. But I knew an emotional outburst would ruin everything. I had to wait for the right moment. A few days later, I met with a lawyer. We went over the prenup in detail and discussed the best way to use the evidence the investigator had gathered. The lawyer advised me to collect more proof to leave no room for doubt in court. I agreed. The longer this game went on, the angrier I became, but I knew I couldn't rush. All this time, Natalie continued living her normal life, completely unaware that her world was about to collapse. We spent evenings together, watching movies, discussing trivial things. She laughed, joked about office gossip, and talked about her friends. It was a strange game, one I was playing against my will. Every laugh, every glance reminded me of her betrayal. One evening, she suddenly asked, "You've been so quiet lately. Is something wrong?" I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "No, everything's fine. Just a lot of work." She reached out and placed her hand on mine. "You're such a workaholic. You need to relax. Maybe we should go away for the weekend." Her words sounded so sincere that for a moment, I doubted myself. But then the images from the video flashed before my eyes, the lies, the deception. She was playing her role, and I had to play mine. "That's a great idea," I said. "I've just been a bit tired." For the weekend, I suggested we go to our family cabin, a place we often visited. But this time, I had a different plan. The day before, I had installed cameras in several rooms. If she tried to contact him, I would see everything. It was a risky move, but it could reveal a lot. She agreed without hesitation, even seeming excited. The day went smoothly. We walked in the woods, grilled dinner, and she looked happy, as if nothing was wrong. But I knew better. Late that night, when she thought I was asleep, I saw her on the porch, her face illuminated by her phone screen. She was talking to someone. I couldn't hear the words, but I knew who it was. My plan was working. The next day, back in the city, I collected the footage from the cameras and handed it over to the investigator. Now, he would process the video and prepare it for court. All I had to do was wait. But my patience was wearing thin. I knew the end was near. I started preparing for the final move, gradually transferring money to my accounts under the guise of investments. I had already put the house and car in my name. Natalie noticed nothing, too caught up in her own life. All that was left was to execute the plan. The days dragged on painfully. I was like a volcano ready to erupt, but I kept it together. Every day, I saw her smile, heard her carefree chatter, felt her touch, as if nothing had happened. It was unbearable. My revenge was brewing slowly, and I still had to play the role of the loving husband. But inside, I was no longer the same person. The lawyer continued gathering evidence, advising me not to rush. He wanted everything to be clean and flawless. That meant I had to stay calm a little longer. But lying next to her in bed, I felt the hatred eating away at me. One evening, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to talk, to vent. I met up with my old friend Andrew. We had known each other since high school, and I trusted him completely. We sat at a bar, and I started talking, hesitant at first, then faster, angrier. When I finished, Andrew looked at me seriously. "Are you sure about all this?" he asked. I silently pulled out my phone and showed him the photos, videos, and call logs. He stared at the screen for a long time, then looked up at me. "This is heavy, Mark. But you can't just throw this around. It's serious. Have you decided what you're going to do?" I clenched my glass. "Yes, Andrew. I have a plan. She's going to lose everything." He was silent for a few seconds, then said, "I get it. But don't forget about your son. Don't do anything that could hurt him." His words stuck with me. I was terrified of how this would affect our son, but could I just let it go? A week later, I received the final evidence from the investigator. It included her messages, phone calls, and details of her meetings with that man. The last piece of the puzzle was in place. Now, everything was documented, on paper and in video. That same day, I invited Natalie to dinner at our favorite restaurant. She was surprised but agreed. I wanted her to feel at ease, to suspect nothing. She was in a good mood, talking about our upcoming family vacation. When the waiter brought dessert, I pulled out an envelope and placed it in front of her. "What's this?" she asked, smiling. "Open it," I said calmly. She carefully tore the edge of the envelope and pulled out the papers. As soon as her eyes landed on the photos and printed messages, her face changed. Her hands trembled. "What? What is this?" she whispered. I paused before answering. "This is proof of your lies, everything you've been hiding from me." She opened her mouth as if to say something, but I cut her off. "Don't bother explaining. I know everything. We have two options, either you sign the papers and walk out of my life, or we settle this in court, and you lose a lot more." Her face went through a range of emotions: shock, anger, sadness. She started crying, begging me to understand her. But I wasn't listening. I had waited weeks for this moment. I stood up, left money for the dinner on the table, and calmly said, "You have 3 days to pack your things and leave." I walked out of the restaurant feeling both empty and relieved. This wasn't a victory, but it was the end of her influence over my life. When I got home, our son was already asleep. I went into his room, sat by his bed, and watched him for a long time. He didn't know anything, didn't suspect anything. He didn't deserve any of this. I swore I would do everything to protect him from this pain, no matter what happened next. That night, for the first time in a long time, I slept peacefully. 3 days later, Natalie packed her things. She looked defeated but tried to maintain her dignity. There was a faint hope in her eyes, as if she expected me to change my mind. But I was firm. For me, this was the final chapter. She hugged our son tightly before leaving. "Mom, where are you going?" he asked, confused. "You'll be back soon, right?" She looked at me, waiting for me to say something, but I remained silent. "Mom's going away for a while," she said softly, stroking his head. "But we'll see each other again." After she left, the house felt cold and lifeless. Even with our son there, I felt like I had lost more than just her. Days passed, but the feeling that I had missed something important didn't go away. I thought it would get easier, but there was only heaviness inside. A few weeks later, I got a message from Natalie, "We need to talk." I stared at the screen, unsure how to respond. Eventually, I agreed. We met at a cafe where we had once celebrated our anniversary. She looked tired, as if she had aged in those few weeks. I sat down without saying a word. "Thanks for coming," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know how to say this, so I'll just say it. I have serious health problems." I didn't know how to respond. All the months of pain, anger, and confusion suddenly seemed trivial. "It's already at a late stage," she continued. "I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know." I couldn't find the words. "Have you told our son?" I finally asked. She shook her head. "No, and I don't plan to. He shouldn't know. I want him to remember me as I was before." In that moment, I realized the depth of what was happening. She had hidden the truth from me, and I had destroyed her life. But now, all of that seemed insignificant. We spent the last months of her life together for our son's sake. She didn't justify herself or ask for anything. We just existed in silence. When she passed away, a part of me went with her. Our son struggled to understand what had happened. I told him that his mom had been sick, and now she was at peace. He cried, not understanding why she was gone. I held him, holding back my own emotions. In the end, there were no winners, only emptiness and the realization that time can't be turned back. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Wishing you all the best, and see you soon.